So coming out of last night's edition of AEW Dynamite, there is a ton of AEW news to get into. So I wanted to get straight into some of the biggest stories that people are talking about when it comes to AEW, and where else do you start, apart from the announcement by AEW last night on Dynamite that Cody and Brandi Rhodes will be having a reality series soon coming to TNT. There is certainly a lot to talk about when it comes to this. I know a lot of people have got a variety of opinions talking about this reality series. So Cody and Brandi Rhodes are making their way to reality television. Last night's AEW Dynamite saw an advertisement for Rhodes to the Top, a new reality TV series starring the AEW power couple. The announcement trailer showcased the Rhodes' home lives, as well as backstage shots of Tony Khan producing and MJF chatting. The unscripted series is set to take viewers behind the scenes in AEW. In a press release sent out to a variety of websites and media, AEW noted that the series will contain 30-minute episodes that will take viewers, quote, inside the lives of Cody and Brandi as they navigate their growing family while building AEW's global wrestling empire, end quote. The new series received a stamp of approval from numerous TNT television executives. This was a quote from Sam Linsky, co-head of scripted TBS, TNT, and True TV. He said, quote, "I've witnessed firsthand the passion and dedication that Cody and Brandi put into every facet of their life and know how much that plays an instrumental role in the success and expansion of AEW. Now the world will get an inside look at how they balance their personal wrestling careers, their training center, and their executive roles at AEW as they venture into one of the most intimidating chapters of their life, parenthood." This is what Corey Henson, Executive Vice President of Unscripted for TBS, TNT, and True TV said. He said, quote, "AEW fans know Brandi and Cody inside the ring, and Rhodes to the Top will peel back the curtain of their lives off the mat. Running a business together as the stars of Dynamite, juggling friends and family, and introducing a new baby into the Rhodes dynasty is sure to be a wild ride." AEW founder and president Tony Khan further emphasized his enthusiasm about the show, while also teasing a future third hour of weekly wrestling programming coming to TNT later in 2021. He said, quote, "I'm thrilled to expand AEW's relationship with Warner Media and TNT. And Rhodes to the Top will represent a new outlet in which our fans can further connect with characters they already love, and new viewers can discover these personalities for the first time. With our flagship show Dynamite and now Rhodes to the Top, in addition to our third hour of wrestling programming coming to TNT later this year, 2021 will be an historic year for AEW and our partnership with Warner Media." Cody and Brandi added that the show will be the first true look behind the curtain and beyond the ring, as viewers will get to see them fail and succeed. So, let's talk about this, because a lot of people had a variety of different reactions to it last night when it was announced on Dynamite. And not wanting to be one of those people that sits on the fence, but my views are a bit mixed on it. I'm not going to criticize Cody Rhodes or Brandi Rhodes or AEW for doing a reality TV series. They're part and parcel of pro wrestling at this point. In the same vein that you can't criticize WWE for doing them, you can't criticize WWE for having Miz and Mrs. You can't criticize them for having Total Bellas or Total Divas, because all of those reality shows have done very, very well for WWE. And whether we like it or not, I know I'm not a massive fan of reality television. I know some people are. I myself, I'm not a fan of reality television. It's not my deal. But I know for a lot of people it is. And nowadays, to be honest, reality television is really the television that drives ratings. If it's not cable news or sports, it's reality television. That's what it is. And it seems strange to me, because you felt that, at least I did, living over here in the UK, that reality TV really had its boom in the sort of early 2000s. In sort of the mid-2000s, that period of time. But I guess in America, maybe the television market in America is different. I don't know. I don't profess to know that much about that. But it would appear that reality television is really, again, if it's not cable news or sports, that's what really drives the ratings. And certainly when it comes to the Bella Twins, of course, the Bella Twins are known for being professional wrestlers, but they're arguably just as well known for their reality TV series. I mean, it's been that popular. And Miz and Mrs. does very well for USA Network. They're very happy with that. So it makes sense from an AEW perspective and a TNT, TBS, and True TV perspective that they would have a reality show following the world of professional wrestling. That makes a lot of sense. So I think business-wise, that makes a lot of sense. When it comes to Cody Rhodes and Brandi Rhodes, this is where I tend to agree with some people about some of the criticisms here. Put it this way, look. I'm not going to criticize Cody Rhodes for being involved in this project or anything like that. It certainly is very, very apparent, though, isn't it, that Cody Rhodes is the guy when it comes to AEW. Now, people can talk about Kenny Omega, people can talk about Jon Moxley, who in my opinion are better pro wrestlers than Cody Rhodes. I enjoy Kenny Omega's work more than I enjoy Cody Rhodes' work. I enjoy Jon Moxley's work more than I enjoy Cody Rhodes' work. Not to say that I think Cody Rhodes is a bad professional wrestler, because I don't think that. I think Cody Rhodes is very good at what he does. I think he's a good pro wrestler. I think he's good in the ring. I think his promos are actually very good, one of the best in the company. I think he's good at what he does. But it's very obvious when it comes to AEW, Cody's the guy. Cody's the top guy. And I know they try and mask that by saying, well, he's not giving himself the world championship. He's, there's several executive vice presidents in that company. There's Cody, the Bucks, Kenny Omega, right? And Cody's one of them. But they say, well, Cody Rhodes, he hasn't given himself the world championship. How can he be the top guy? He's not going to book himself to become world champion. It kind of masks that he's the top guy, because he is the top guy. It's obvious. When it comes to AEW's relationship with Warner Media, and when it comes to AEW's promotion of a variety of things, Cody's the public face of AEW. He just is. Cody Rhodes is the guy that's on the Go Big Show on TBS. Cody's the guy that's got the reality series. Cody's got the guy that's one of the first people to have his action figure. Even though AEW Games is all about Kenny Omega, Cody Rhodes was involved in that. If there's a big media call, it's either with Tony Khan or it's with Cody Rhodes, because Cody Rhodes is the public face of AEW. And I think it's a risky strategy to take, frankly, because we've seen at this point, when it comes to maybe society in general, when it comes to overexposure, but certainly with professional wrestling fans on social media and around the world, it's not just limited to social media, but social media plays a big part in it, that if you become overexposed, if you're on everything, and we've seen this with the likes of, your Roman Reigns, your John Cena's, your Seth Rollins in the years for WWE, if you're on everything in the modern era, fans can turn on you like that, and they will, because they just get tired. They get tired of seeing the face. They get tired of saying, isn't this guy great? You've got to like this guy. He's got this show. He's got this show. He does this. He does that. Isn't he great? We're going to listen to this person again. And it's just like, enough. Enough. And I think that's the issue that people have with Cody Rhodes, is that he is the public face of the company in AEW, but I think the idea of having someone that's like the public face of the company, that idea is almost outdated now, and professional wrestling fans end up rallying against it. And certainly, Cody Rhodes is always going to be in a difficult position because he is an executive vice president, and he is always going to be perceived as someone that could put himself ahead of other people, and he didn't have massive success in WWE. I think, he had significant success in WWE. He's a former Intercontinental Champion, and he was always about here. Obviously, he should have been way, way higher. He should have been in the main event scene. Never happened. It never happened. And there's this perception of him that I think people think, well, he left and he helped make this company, and now he's pushing himself as a main eventer when he's not a main eventer. He was always a mid-carder. Again, I don't subscribe to that. But I do subscribe to the theory that he can be overexposed. I don't necessarily agree with all of his philosophies and perceptions of pro wrestling. Some of the times on some of these media calls, he said stuff that I think is just ridiculous, frankly. I think some of the stuff he said is ridiculous, especially when he's talking about women's wrestling and talking about not every match needs an angle at a pay-per-view, when it's, to me, very hypocritical, considering that every match Cody Rhodes has at a pay-per-view has to be involved in an angle, has to be featured. So I think that's probably the problem there is this idea of, I don't even know what the word is. It's not nepotism because he's not, pushing his child, he's pushing himself. I definitely think that there is some basis in some of the criticism that comes to Cody and Brandi, in the sense that they're the public face of the company, and sometimes it's a little bit like it's been in WWE for years, like when Triple H used to always win, when people roll their eyes because they're in positions of power. And when they win, and when they get featured in these big spots, people just roll their eyes because that's wrestling politics. And again, I know people's response to that is, well, he lost at Revolution, he lost to Chris Jericho, he lost to MJF, he's putting people over. And you go, well, okay, that's fine. But you also have to look at the build and the way that Dynamite's presented and the way that Cody's always front and center, and he has the big grand entrance and the long and the big segments and all that kind of stuff. And if someone's new, Cody has to be involved in that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? I think that stuff is valid. when it comes to this reality series, I wouldn't watch anyway because it's not my kind of thing. So I can't really comment on that. And I'm sure for a lot of people they will watch. And TNT, as far as I'm aware, again I don't know this completely for a fact, but I think TNT at this point, what do? AEW, NBA, and films, pretty much, and a couple of original TV series. And I'm sure they just look at AEW, which has been a massive success for Dynamite, or for TNT rather. They're looking at that and they just want more of it. They want more of it, and I think from an AEW perspective, if they can make Cody into this big mainstream star, which is what they're trying to do, is ultimately what they're trying to do. If they can make him into this big mainstream star, then that's ultimately what they want to do. And when it comes to other things as well, look, Cody Rhodes and Brandi Rhodes, they're a mixed race couple as well. I think that's a great message. I think it smashes any preconceptions about anything like that. I think that's a unique element to it as well, and I'm sure TNT look at that as well. It's a unique reality show, definitely in that sense of this is a two pro wrestling executives, and it's a unique spin on the whole reality concept, I suppose. So it certainly is going to be interesting. Obviously lots of people had a variety of reactions to it. It's certainly something that I don't think anyone wanted. Nobody was crying out for a Cody Rhodes reality show by any stretch of the imagination, but again, it just reinforces the fact that if there was any discussion of if Cody and Brandi were not the faces of AEW, then they are. They are. And that's the case when it comes to AEW. There's a couple other things I wanted to talk about as well. You can see there that AEW have announced their first live event, which is a bit bizarre considering we're in a pandemic. But AEW will hold their first ever non-televised event on Friday, April 9th at Daily Place in Jacksonville, Florida. Fans can get tickets to both that week's Dynamite and the House Show for $40 plus fees. Matches have yet to be announced for the event, but AEW World Champion Kenny Omega, AEW TNT Champion Darby Allin, Jade Cargill, Britt Baker, Matt Sydal, Orange Cassidy, MJF, and Cody are on the graphic in AEW's tweet for this. Certainly is a bit interesting. I think considering, as I mentioned, we're in a pandemic, you wouldn't think that. I mean, no one's running live events. Maybe it's just a case of AEW trying to feel out if they could possibly run some live events. I don't know. Some people might look at it and go, oh, AEW, they need the money. They don't need the money. I would maybe assume it's a case of them trying to... they're probably just trying it out. I would assume they're probably trying it out. They're gauging the interest. Obviously, they're based in Jacksonville anyway. It might just be a case of trying to reward the fans for being loyal to them during this difficult time and attending these shows in Daily's Place. Maybe they're looking at the demand that's there for the Dynamite TV tapings and said, look, we can make a bit of extra money. Maybe that's the case there as well. So that is certainly interesting. I thought I would mention that too. Also, I wanted to talk about this. Orange Cassidy has received a new AEW entrance theme. Orange Cassidy will now enter to Where Is My Mind by the Pixies. Cassidy previously used Juicy as his entrance music, a song developed and produced by All Elite Wrestling. Orange Cassidy will debut the new theme on Monday's AEW Dark Elevation. Cassidy is set to team up with Chuck Taylor against JD Drake and Ryan Nemeth. Cassidy's new music was praised by AEW founder Tony Khan. Khan mentioned he tried to get Jefferson Starship's Jane for years, but is still happy with what is coming instead. Freshly squeezed new AEW theme marks the second time actually that AEW has used licensed music for one of their wrestlers' entrances. Most of the wrestlers use music specifically composed for them, such as Kenny Omega's Battle Cry or the music they used on the independent scene, like Cody Rhodes' Kingdom. Also, I believe Jungle Boy has that Tarzan theme now, which is a licensed song that Tony Khan bought the rights to, which now Jungle Boy uses on AEW programming. WWE, of course, has famously used licensed music in the past, such as Living Colour's Cult of Personality for CM Punk or Joan Jett's Bad Reputation for Ronda Rousey. Also, of course, The Undertaker used Limp Bizkit's Rolling for a period of time. I think it's great. I mean, you might not be a fan of the Pixies, or you might not have heard the song before. If you haven't, it is so good. It is so good, and this is really off point. It's a massive tangent. But they were so ahead of their time. They were so ahead of the time, the Pixies. This song, when you hear it, you will assume, it's probably released, in like the 90s? The early 90s, mid-90s, because it's got a bit of a grunge feel to it. But the Pixies, Where Is My Mind? It was released in 1988. I mean, it predates, your Nirvanas and stuff like that. It's such a good song. I don't know initially, how much it suited the Orange Cassidy character, I must say, and I didn't think their song was that bad anyway. But I have seen the video. It's on social media. Obviously, I can't play the music here because it'll get copyrighted. But it's on social media, and I would definitely recommend go and see it, because obviously there's fans in the tapings. Go see it, because it's awesome. When you hear it, you go, one, it's a great song, but it's such a good entrance theme. So I'm really excited to see that. I'll be waiting with bated breath to see the clip on Monday when it airs on Elevation. Speaking of which, with Orange Cassidy making his Where Is My Mind debut at Elevation, there will also be Jon Moxley appearing on AEW Dark Elevation on Monday. This was said to be a special treat by Tony Khan, so Jon Moxley is going to be appearing on Monday's AEW Dark Elevation. They're obviously trying to still build that up. To me, and again, this might seem overly critical, for me, it's just AEW Dark. it's just AEW Dark. If you watch it, there isn't a massive difference. Yes, you've got Paul White and Tony Schiavone on commentary, which I really like. I think Paul White does an excellent job. I think he's a really, really good commentator, actually, and he's going to get just better and better doing it. So I think he does a great job. I just don't see the difference between Dark and Dark Elevation. There isn't any. There is a different name. I mean, even the logo is the AEW Dark logo. It just says Elevation at the bottom. I mean, at least try and brand it something different. So they're putting Moxley on there to try and, do a bit of window dressing, I guess. For me, like I said, it's just Dark. I really don't see the difference in that one. That's just me. And finally, Christian Cage will be making his AEW in-ring debut next week on Dynamite. During a backstage interview this week, Christian was interrupted by SCU's Frankie Kazarian, the former AEW Tag Team Champion, who referenced Christian's shirt, which reads "Outwork Everyone," and asked when the work part of that catchphrase came in. Christian responded saying next week, setting up his AEW singles debut against Frankie Kazarian to take place on next week's AEW Dynamite. This will be Christian's first traditional wrestling match in over 7 years. The former World Heavyweight Champion last wrestled a fatal four-way on the March 24, 2014 Monday Night Raw, which coincidentally came 7 years before tonight's announcement. The Instant Classic did wrestle an impromptu unsanctioned match against Randy Orton last summer, but lost in seconds, taking a low blow and a punt kick from the Viper. Christian will make his physical in-ring return at January's Royal Rumble for ultimately signing and debuting with All Elite Wrestling at AEW Revolution last month, or earlier this month rather. So there you go, Christian Cage is going to make his AEW in-ring debut next week. Exciting. I think it kind of silences the naysayers that said, oh, he's just going to be like a Brock Lesnar and he's only going to wrestle pay-per-views or anything like that. The answer is no. The reason he signed with AEW, as Tony Khan said, is to wrestle. So that's going to be the case when it comes to Christian Cage. I'm excited. It certainly is a match that could have taken place on Spike TV in 2007 or 2008. For Impact Wrestling, for TNA Wrestling at the time. So I guess Christian's first match back in a ring is with someone he trusts, ultimately. And I know some people might have rolled their eyes at that, going, oh, two veterans or two former TNA talents facing off on Dynamite next week. I think ultimately, as I just said, it's about Christian going in there with someone that he trusts. That's the most important thing. So I have no doubts the match will be good next week. Christian's obviously going to win, but I think it's just a case of him working off that ring rust. Of course, he's been working in the ring. This isn't going to be the first time he stepped in a ring, but I think it's a case of getting in there with someone he trusts, feeling it out, and just getting his ring legs back to him, if you could put it that way. So there you go. That's all the news stories today when it comes to AEW. But of course, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on the stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about AEW, WWE, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. It really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings, and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.